Welcome to Let's Be Frank, episode lucky number 13.
Yes.
um, we decided to chat, have a little bit more of a relaxed one. I think our last one was quite heavy. Maybe this one will be too by the way you titled it in the email. but Herman went on a lovely little road trip with his family. So I'll let you explain a bit about that and how it came about. And then we want to talk about some of your experiences. So over to you.
Yeah, it was a road trip of 7 days. We covered roughly 4,500 kilometers, so it was a proper road trip.
Yeah.
And spent one night at a destination, except for Cape Town, where we spent 3 nights. Um, and it was myself and my daughter and my granddaughter, the three of us. We have never done something like this. Um, and also, my granddaughter has never visited Cape Town and some of the other outlying areas that we visited. So, our road trip included places where her mother spent some time in her youth, her first school year, and so we just wanted to show her these things. And obviously, as you can expect, a 13-year-old, a lot of these things don't really make sense. But I kept reminding her, that just bank these memories because they will come back and serve you well later in life. But we were really fortunate in the sense that when we got to Cape Town, um, they there's a lot of rain this season,
Yep.
and
It's
it
been
was a bit
flooding.
of a yeah, it's been flooding, and we drove all the way from Springbok in the Northern Cape. It's about 700 kilometers down to Cape Town in pouring rain. And obviously, one of the things that you want to do is go up Table Mountain and experience that, the cable cart, and then also the views and the nature, etc. And it was leading up to the time there in Cape Town. It was touch and go. One day, the weather forecast said, "Oh, it's going to be sunny," and the next time you looked, it was showing, no, it's pissing down with rain. Anyway, we were fortunate in that we had a day where it was relatively good weather, and we could go up Mountain and experience that as well. And then the following day, we had to resort to the aquarium because it was just horrible weather outside.
It's a nice
But
aquarium.
it is a lovely aquarium. It's not the worst place to spend some time in.
Yeah.
So the and then from there we made our way around the garden route,
Nice.
and instead of going to the usual spots like George or Knysna, I decided to just go inland a little bit and spent a night in Oudtshoorn,
Okay.
where all the ostrich farms
Yeah.
are. Took the drive down the mountain pass, which is absolutely phenomenal, um, into George and kind of see all of that, and then back up. And then because we were there, looked around and remembered that the Kango Caves
Yeah.
are just outside Oudtshoorn, and made a trip there, which was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it was every day there was something new to experience, and spending the time together, and then spending the meals together, which are which are really great bonding experience, and an
Yeah.
opportunity to kind of explore. I don't know. We take most of our dinners together as a family here anyway, and yet it was different.
Yeah. being out
Um,
of the comfort zone and the familiarity of home and
cor
yeah.
correct, yes. But for me, just the experience of covering that kind of distance in a relatively short period of time and seeing uh, all the different things that you see from province to province and from town to town, getting to interact with the locals and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing how different it is to what you are so used to
Yeah.
when you are just and again for me it's different than doing a beach holiday, where you drive to a destination and it's all about getting there and spending a week there and then getting in the car and then dreading the trip back home again.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful experience. Obviously, for her, a lot of things that she's seen for the first time and experienced for the first time. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the short version of my road trip. I ate all the ice creams and drank all the
Lots of
milkshakes, and
katkos.
well, surprisingly, on day one and day two, these little farm stalls, um, and buying all these beautiful products, the biltong and the raisins and dried fruit and etc. Because part of where we went through the Uppington area, um, kind of well known for the raisins in that come from the area.
Okay.
So we actually ended up with a bag full of treats and snacks that made it all the way back to Johannesburg,
Okay, that's impressive.
which I'm sure we'll consume over the next few days
Yeah.
and reminisce about these things. Anyway, so it was just a wonderful opportunity to experience this, and even places where I have been and that I have been to fairly recently, I still enjoyed,
Yeah.
because it's a different season. Um, the landscape is different. The What you experience there is different to how you remember experiencing
Yeah.
it the previous time.
Well, we went up Table Mountain in the cable car. When was that? 20 beginning of 2020 or sometime in
20,
2019.
I think it was 2019. I
Yeah.
actually thought about that because that was my previous time that I went up on the
Yes.
mountain. And I was actually telling them that the last time we went up Table Mountain, actually met people
Yeah.
that we knew from
So strange.
Johannesburg on Table
Yeah.
Mountain.
Very
and
unusual.
and this and this time, between all the different accents and languages that you hear on the mountain, I was kind of keeping my eye open for people that I know, but sadly no one this time
Yeah.
that I recognized and knew. Uh, yeah, yeah, it is. It's absolutely stunning and phenomenal.
Yeah.
Uh, like I say, it's my first time in about 4 years, and if the opportunity presents itself in another 2 or 3 years, I'll do it again.
Yes.
Um, yeah, it was. I was amazed at the number of tourists, seeing that it's winter and that it's summer in Europe, and you would think that the Europeans would prefer to enjoy the summer and rather come to visit Cape Town um, when it's summer down here. I
Yeah.
was amazed to see how many tourists there were.
Do you know, I
And
found that people here are very negative about it here all year round, and I love summer here.
really,
Yeah, I absolutely adore summer here, but I've heard all the locals kind of complaining that like, oh, Cape Town must be so much nicer than here. I'm like, we also have seasons.
correct.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It's interesting that. So I like the concept concept of being a tourist in your own
Yeah.
country and in your own province and in your own town.
Yeah.
And every time I do something like I've done now for the last week, I think to myself, well, you know what? I must be more of a tourist in my own city
Yeah.
because you hear from somebody about a an art gallery or a restaurant
Yeah.
or a nature hike or whatever, and you think, yeah, yeah, I'll get around to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but then you kind of get down back to your routine or your whatever you want to call it, and you end up not doing these things.
Yes.
So it is something that I'm adamant that I will make a point of is to at least once a month pick out something in my own town
Yeah.
to go and be a tourist for a day.
I think that's a great idea. I actually did that yesterday in my little town. Um,
Okay.
I go for walks almost every day. So
Mm,
I've been getting a bit bored with the walks that I'm doing because from my house there's only so many routes I can do and I've done them all. And so I decided to walk a little bit further than I would normally walk out. And I went to the next town, which also has a little harbour. And I decided I was going to get the ferry back to my town and then walk home. So I did something a bit different. I walked a bit further and I knew that I wasn't going to have to walk the whole way back because I could catch the ferry from
great.
there back to my harbour and then walk back home. So that was quite nice. Also did a touristy thing yesterday.
Yeah, and even something as simple as taking the ferry from one town to the next. That's a new
Exactly.
experience, you
Yeah.
know. That's something, um, and you see different people, you see different characters,
Yeah.
um,
One of the
and
guys that worked on the ferry was very drunk. He was talking to everyone on the ferry and you could see everyone felt very uncomfortable.
oh my word. These are all part of the memories that you
Yeah.
take from doing little things like that.
Yes.
So yeah, no, very much. I'm reminded every time I do something like this that you can bring it closer to home and you can
Yeah.
have more of those experiences.
And I'm sure your granddaughter is going to, even if maybe she didn't understand it now, she'll really treasure these memories when she's older because my parents also used to do kind of road trips around the country with us when I was that age. And I've got really fond memories of the people we
Mm.
met and the things we did and the things we collected. I remember my mom used to collect those little guinea fowls that they would paint on the side of the
Oh
road.
yeah,
We had like a whole collection of guinea fowls from everywhere we went, and yeah, the memories are definitely there, even if at the time maybe I was a bratty 13-year-old who wasn't that interested in it.
yeah. That's all that's important. An interesting observation. Um, she was obviously very happy to get back home yesterday
Yeah,
afternoon because all her friends
yeah,
um, you know, are here waiting for her to catch up with all the things that she experienced, etc. And last night, so so we barely got home, and she was out in the streets, you know, um, catching up with the friends. And last night at dinner, I said to her, "Are you seem to be happy to be back home?" And she says, "Yeah, it's great. You know, it's nice to see all my friends." And then she made the observation, "But I think I'm going to miss our dinners."
okay,
And that was quite an interesting observation for me. That there is something I thought, you know, there were other things that made a much bigger impression on her. You know, seeing Cape Town for the first time, you know, it's like it's beautiful,
yeah.
and maybe we should move to Cape Town. You know, those kind of comments, and I thought that it would be something like that, and yet it was the sitting around a table, eating a meal together, and the conversations that
Yeah,
happens around that, which which was very pleasant to hear.
that's very cool. I had a question for
Mm,
you Because you have
Yes,
been sleeping on your grounding sheet for a month or two now, and
correct.
I'm assuming you didn't take it with you on your trip.
I didn't.
Have you noticed any difference? Did you miss it? Did you feel differently when you woke up in the morning? I mean, obviously you were sleeping in different beds, and so that
Yeah.
would affect it. But I'm just curious if you noticed any visible.
So I didn't notice any visible differences. I didn't feel that waking up or getting up, it was um, that my body was feeling different or that I was feeling less rested, etc. But then there's obviously the excitement of
Yeah.
the the trip itself, which I think played into that. So I was aware of the fact, and I did try to kind of measure myself against that. I must say, last night felt different.
Yeah. So sleeping on
Last
it
night,
again.
sleeping on it again.
Yeah.
So I I didn't I didn't do any grounding on the road trip
Mm-hmm.
because it was wet and cold,
Cold.
uh, that sort of thing, you know. So the opportunity to ground wasn't there. Um, but I'm also not 100% sure how long it would take for that build up to happen to a point where you actually start noticing it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that was also obviously significant in about the week is that I spent a lot less time on my computer
Mm-hmm.
or even on my phone
Yeah.
consuming. So yeah, it's not like I could say, oh yeah, no, definitely
Exactly.
next road trip I'm going to pack it. Um, but like I say, last night definitely felt different. I can't
Yeah.
really describe to you in what way, but I did get up this morning feeling very refreshed.
Okay.
It's not like I had a, a, a longer sleep. In fact, I had a shorter sleep than I would normally have. But I woke up refreshed
Okay.
and I felt good.
That's good to
So
hear.
it's good to hear, even if it's just in the head, you know. I'm sticking to it. Yeah,
Psychosomatic. I don't know. I yeah.
psychosomatic's fine.
I am. I think I've knocked over some things on my shelf. Psychosomatic is still. If it has the positive effect, it's fine. It works. It doesn't matter, even if
Yeah,
it is in the head. Um.
correct.
So now maybe we're getting to a heavier side of things. But you had mentioned when you sent me the invite for this road trips and riots. So I'd like to understand what you're talking about with the riots side
Well,
effects.
you know, yeah, the riots, it just seems to me like it's something that we can't ignore. I mean, it is happening in more and more places. So I would actually like to hear what do you what do you see happening on the news, or how is it reported? I mean, because I see some stuff on social media about riots in London that looks horrible.
I haven't seen that. I the one I've seen is the French. I mean, obviously the France stuff is quite big
Correct.
at the moment, but I haven't seen anything in London. I must admit, I'm a little bit like I'm not good with the news, but I haven't even seen it on social media. Um, there's a
That's
show called
interesting.
Have I Got News for You, which is like a comedy roundup of the news of the week, which I've been really interested in watching. But since I got interested in watching it, it hasn't been on. So I watched some of the older
Mm.
episodes, which were relevant and interesting, and now not so much. But no, I haven't seen anything about riots in London. Don't know.
Well, yeah. So as I say, you know, it's interesting. I also stay away from the news. From what I see on Twitter mostly is that it's not really widely reported
Yeah,
in in the US at least in terms of the riots. But as you say, you know, the riots in France are horrible. Then there's also some fairly serious protest action, I believe, happening in the Netherlands with the farmers, etc., which which I also don't think that we are seeing much of.
No.
Um, yeah, so it'll be interesting to kind of hear your view once you've now that I've
Yeah.
made you aware
Yeah.
of some riots in London, because I saw some video clips with typical um, how shall I phrase it, non-savory behavior in terms of damaging public property, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Obviously, not nearly at the scale of what's happening in France, but I do think that we're going to see more and more and more of this
Yeah.
over over the next while. Um, there's on a much smaller scale in South Africa. It's actually, as far as I can tell, it's localized to a few areas
Mm-hmm.
where there is the let's say typical service delivery type of protests,
Yeah.
which is not a protest, and it's not really about service delivery. It is absolute thuggery.
It's an opportunity to break things.
Yeah, so look, on the one hand, I try to understand people's frustrations in
Yeah.
terms of what they're experiencing and what they're going through. Um, and I do think that most of the people that end up participating in these things are sort of being coerced or fleeced into participating.
Yeah.
And then you get caught up in the excitement, if we can call it that, and things escalate. But I, it is something that I will definitely keep an eye on in terms of how does that progress. Because remember, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned the book, The Fourth Turning,
Yeah.
um, and it is we are supposedly in a fourth turning, um, and just with all the events that happened over the last couple of years and kind of build up of frustration, etc., etc. And I'm not 100% sure that we're not going to see maybe some riots or some protest action in the US based on certain court decisions
Mm.
that were taken over the last week or so, which is a wonderful opportunity for obviously people to take things out of context and drive a specific narrative
Yeah.
um, to, um, I don't know, to further their agenda. Um, but I do think that the world, people are frustrated. They're not peeved. They're
Mm.
frustrated,
Yeah.
really pissed off with institutions, organizations, etc. And one of the things that I obviously think about quite a lot is what is the role of government, or what should the role of government be? Um, I think that that's a wider conversation that must be had in society in general,
Yeah.
because I just feel that people have this unrealistic expectation of what government should do for the citizens.
Yeah. I quite like, because I've just finished Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. I quite like John Galt's his suggestion of who the absolute worst person that we are told about is, and he says it's Robin Hood, who steals from the rich to give to the
To
poor.
give to the poor.
And it really struck me because when I've thought about Robin Hood, I've always thought, hey, he's a good guy. He steals from the
Yeah,
greedy asshole rich people and he gives to the poor. But obviously, reading that book has changed my perception of that, because the rich have worked for what they've got.
correct.
And so whose right is it to take that away from them and give it to anyone else who doesn't necessarily deserve it? And so obviously that is Ayn Rand's theory and philosophy, and how she sees the world. But yeah, that definitely struck something in me, and stuck with me, the Robin Hood being kind of the anti-hero, not the good guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's good that you kind of saw that,
Yeah,
and kind of have this different view or perception of somebody, or of a story
yeah,
that we've all been told, and you see him in a specific light.
yeah,
Um, and but I honestly think that you know everyone will benefit from actually sitting and thinking about the role of. We try to pass responsibility onto them,
yeah,
or they must, and whether you kind of have this against the rich or the the government, etc. It's and I honestly don't know how this is going to play out and how long it's going to take. But I am starting to look at it in with a lot more anticipation of something good will come out on the other side.
yeah.
Um, but in order to get there, we unfortunately going to go over this really through this bumpy period,
Yeah.
you know,
I
with
also have a, maybe it's a bit of a negative outlook, but good isn't ever good for everyone. That's There's no
correct.
good for all. Good for someone might not be
Yes.
good for someone else. So it's a difficult one to, yeah, I don't know.
No, I fully understand
Yeah,
that. Um, but I think that that's part of the lesson what everybody must learn. Yeah,
yeah.
the thing about equal outcome, never ever in the history of humankind has there been equal outcome.
And nor can
You
they
know,
be, because there's
yes,
nothing that will be benefit everyone equally.
correct.
Yeah.
And every attempt to create that has failed miserably.
Yep.
Anyway,
Interesting.
I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's something worth keeping an eye on, is where these riots pop up, and how severe, and what is it that people are rioting about.
Yeah.
And often it's not the it's not the thing that they say that they're rioting about, or
Yeah.
the thing
Well,
that sparked it is not really the thing that caused all the frustration, etc.
it's also a good idea to look at who is rallying the troops and who is calling people to arms and what is their agenda. Like,
Oh, of
what do they
course.
get out of it? Because it's, yeah, like
Yeah,
you say,
that's
the
the
people might think that they are marching or rioting for a cause that they're not actually
correct.
standing for.
So yeah, and then as you say, who are the instigators and who are those calling people to the streets and so on, and then you go back to follow the money, because somebody is making money out of this. Somebody has an agenda which
Yeah.
they want to push. Um, anyway, it's an
Interesting.
um, interesting times that we live in, and it's going to get more interesting, in my opinion. What are you reading at the moment?
I am reading Fast Like a Girl by Dr.
Okay.
Mindy Peltz. So you mentioned Stephen Bartlett to me, The Diary of a CEO.
Yeah,
Started
yeah.
following him on Instagram, and there was a short snippet of an interview with Dr. Mindy Peltz, who's a very, very incredible voice in the fasting community, especially for women. And so this is all about how to fast as a woman, to deal with your cycles and hormones, and how it's different. You can't just fast the same way that men fast. And this has been so cool,
Okay.
because I'm really into my intermittent fasting now. I said to my sister yesterday, because she got me into it, that I'm not seeing any results, but I'm feeling really good. So I'm going to keep doing it. And then I saw this and I started reading it. I'm about 6 chapters in or something. And I have a chronic illness to do with my thyroid, and there is a specific plan for how you should fast if you have thyroid problems. So I've now got that in my journal that I'm meant to be doing 15-hour fasts for day 1 to whatever, and then I'm meant to do a 24-hour fast on this day, and I'm meant to do. So I've got my specific plan now in my journal, which I'm going to start.
Okay.
I'm on my first 24-hour fast right now. I did try one a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't make it to 24 hours. I just felt like I was really lightheaded and gonna pass out at about 21 hours, so I ate something. So I'm very much about listening to my body as well. I'm not gonna push myself
Yeah.
if I can't do it. But yeah, I'm in hour 19 of a 24-hour fast now.
Oh, wow.
So and it's only
Well, it's good.
once a month that I do a 24-hour fast according
Okay.
to my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great that you actually have something which you find credible
Yeah.
and some research that back it rather than just somebody's
Yep.
Instagram or Facebook post, that, and then you can try that. And as you say, listen to your body and kind of
Yeah.
feel, um, yeah, I think it's so important to feel good. If you
Yes.
feel better, then it's so much easier to follow that discipline
Yeah.
and experiment with other tips and tricks
Yeah.
around that discipline.
It's
That's
also
really good news.
the science behind it is also just so nice to know. So you've mentioned this to me a few times in the past about like understanding the hypothalamus and the pituitary and what's doing what in your brain when you do certain things. And um, the reason that fasting for women is so different to men is because we've got 3 hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and they change every day throughout the month. And men just have testosterone, which gets released every 24, what was it again, every hour or something, I don't know. But men only have the one hormone uh, to think about, and so fasting for them is a lot easier. They don't have to change their fast at different times of the month. And women are meant to kind of follow a
Okay.
cycle because of what hormones get released at what times of the month. And um, apparently a week
Yeah, that's
before you're meant to not fast at all for a whole week. You're meant to
okay.
keep yourself like the sugar burning rather than the fat burning. And so it's just really interesting to understand like the insulin and the cortisol and all the different things that are going on
Yeah.
in your brain when you're fasting. And yeah, it's good to
Yeah,
know.
also the natural cycles of insulin and cortisol, which I think is very much misunderstood.
Yeah.
Um, just in general by people, and kind of knowing that it's not about eliminating completely, it's about what are the functions and when they occur and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really
It's a good
interesting.
one.
So Dr. Mindy,
Mindy Peltz.
Dr.
Dr.
Mindy
Mindy
Peltz.
Peltz. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to give her a follow and see if she's kind of like in general what
Yeah, so
uh,
actually, your doctor, Dave Asprey, recommended this book. Your doctor, the one that
my doctor.
you
No,
refer to.
Dave Asprey is
Yeah.
not a doctor. Dave Asprey is just a biohacker.
Okay.
Mindy Peltz. Okay.
So he says,
Well, that's
yeah,
interesting.
welcome to getting your brain back and having to buy new, smaller pants. That was
Okay.
his little thing about it.
Nice.
Yeah. Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. So if Dave Asprey gives a shout out, then obviously there's some, in my opinion, he does a lot of research
Yeah.
of before he kind of puts his name behind or recommends somebody. So
Yeah.
she must be a proper scientist. Anyway, well,
Yeah.
that's
What are
good.
you reading?
Well, I'm
Oh, you
I'm
said
starting
Ayn Rand.
I'm starting yeah, The Virtues of Selfishness,
Okay.
a new concept of egoism. Um, and just on the very first page, she she says, The title of this book may evoke the kind of question that I hear once in a while. Why do you use the word selfishness?
Mm.
Then she goes on a little bit about it. And she says, it is not a mere semantic issue nor a matter of arbitrary choice. The meaning ascribed in popular usage to the word selfishness is not merely wrong. It represents a devastating intellectual package deal which is responsible more than any other single factor for the arrested moral development of mankind. Like quite a statement. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I think I'm probably going to give that one a read too then. um,
Yeah, I'm a book that I started reading is trying to understand her philosophy, objectivism,
mm-hmm,
as written by a, a longtime collaborator of hers, Professor Leonard Peikoff.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I've got the audiobook version. Um, but you can imagine it's quite heavy
Yeah,
listening
yeah.
to try and digest at a deeper level somebody's philosophy. So I never finished that, and it's kind of the plan is to go back and get the actual book so that I can go through it at a slower pace and so on. But getting a better understanding of what are views on selfishness um, is definitely high on my to-do list.
Cool. Maybe that's going to be a topic for a future episode. We had mentioned before that we might talk about selfishness or objectivism.
Yeah, it'll be great to kind of get some of the takeaways um, from your reading of Atlas Shrugged. You've already mentioned that you're
Robin
now
Hood.
viewing Robin Hood in a completely different light.
Yeah, maybe the sheriff was the good guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting to kind of hear some of your observations from
yeah,
reading that.
yeah. Cool.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks, Ali.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know about your road trip and look forward to chatting more.
Yeah.